Curves were a very important part of his thinking because he said there aren't straight lines in nature. He almost was indescribable. He had a following. Anyone could be just as taken in with him and his stories and all of his art and his ideas. He could bring all of us into this place that I don't think any of us could ever have fathomed being able to think about. He was an artist, and he liked to say, "I'm really a painter." People have tried to put me into all kinds of pigeonholes, an engineer or an architect. And he said, what I do is I look at shapes and colors, and I just fool around with them until they make sense to me. He did feel that things should be beautiful that we're in. Shapes and the curves, and yet still functional and comfortable to be in. He felt that it was really to make a better world. He liked to talk about nature's shapes are the most versatile and usable and the strongest, and why wouldn't you use those? Whenever he would go camping or fishing, he just thought it was very miserable and very uncomfortable. He couldn't stand the old tents because they were smelly and hadn't been changed since the Civil War. And that's when he got the idea of, well, maybe I can make a tent that isn't smelly, that is easy to put up, that is freestanding, that is roomier. And he created the dome tent. In the 50s, when he came up with the pop tent and the Parawing, the whole landscape was changing in the campgrounds. And this was when family camping was starting to take place. Ford was very involved in that, and of course he worked for Ford, with their station wagon, and that you pack the whole family in, you don't leave the kids or the dogs behind. It was important to him to always work on the mechanics of how to fold down something and make it as compact as possible. That out of small bags, small boxes, you could unfold and get something quite large and quite spacious. I think he liked the surprise element. That was a part of his humor. The Moss tent started creating almost a cult-like feeling that if you had a Moss tent, you had the very best. And they didn't leak and they didn't blow down. And so we would receive these wonderful letters from someone that had survived a 90-mile-an-hour wind on K2 in the Olympic and rave about it. Those kind of stories were being shared in Backpacker magazine and Outside magazine, and the more that got out, the more it started building the legend of the Moss tents. When I sold the company in 2001, my employees had cleaned out the storage areas and they found all these boxes. I had in my possession really 40 some odd years of this man's creative work, and that I felt responsible for it, that I had to chronicle what he had really done and achieved over that period of time. So I set about doing that. In this first book, it's really about the legacy, one man's creative life of all the different products, all the different creative process that he went through, as well as his teams that were working with him. The second book will really be of those Moss tent users, those people that have had a wonderful time, a family vacation, or a motorcycle trip around the world. If you're a Moss tent owner, I'd really love for you to share your story, send a photograph, and we'll all do this together and just have that sort of the last period of this very interesting journey.